So you're like a child that's wandering the movie theater halfway through and you're wondering what's going on. This is Donny Cast for the 30th of June, 2022. I am your host, Walter, on The Good Lie and the Greater Good. And let's get into that shotgun blast to your stupid normie face. So the main story of today is that Ketanji Brown Jackson was sworn into the Supreme Court, replacing Stephen Breyer. Good old Ketanji is the first black woman, even though she can't define what a woman is, and she's going to become Supreme Court justice, even though she has admittedly no foundation of law. She also loves pedos, and her child goes to a private school where they endorse CRT and other pedo stuff. There's a 50-50 chance that she can't actually be legally dumber than Breyer, so there's that. But yeah, we get her today to replace one moron for another. Let's see. So fair is fair on this one. I saw this article pop up where it says Justice Thomas cites debunked claim that COVID vaccines are made with cells from aborted children. Gotta call it out fairly on both sides. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna read this article, and this is nope, this article is disingenuous. So it says here that Thomas, citing the plaintiffs, wrote his dissent that the group of New York healthcare workers object to New York's vaccine mandate on the religious grounds to all available COVID-19 vaccines because they were developed using cell lines derived from aborted children. Well, the next line of the article says Pfizer and Moderna used fetal cell lines early in their COVID vaccine development to test the efficacy of their formulas as other vaccines have in the past. These fetal tissue used in the process came from elective abortions that happened decades ago, but the cells have since replicated many times, so none of the original tissue is involved in the making of the modern vaccine. Developed using fuck you. Okay. I don't how you thought that you could slip that one by the goalie. I have no idea. Yeah, you literally just said, oh, it came from a line of yes. I don't know. I'm not gonna waste my time any further on that. Biden climate advisor demands tech companies censor disinformation to promote benefits of clean energy. This was published on June 14th. It's not something I saw. Obviously there's a whole bunch of morons that work for the Biden administration that are just so ideological bent that they can't see the forest for the trees. I bring this up because she's calling for censorship and she wants to be able to control the narrative when it comes to climate change. Nothing wrong with that. It's not like they know all, be all, everything all the time. So moving on from the Biden administration trying to control the narrative on climate change, we see that new Dutch emissions rules hamstring farmers and threaten food security. So on this one, we have there's Dutch farmers protesting in the Netherlands. The government is slated to cut nitrogen oxide and ammonia by 50% by 2030 and has already allocated 25 billion euros to assist in shifting farms to meet the new requirements. The government in the past has called on farmers to use feed for their animals that contains less protein as a way to reducing ammonia emissions. The Netherlands raises a food surplus yearly and is the second largest exporter of agricultural commodities behind the United States, which I didn't know. And it also says it's crazy because of how much smaller they are in the United States. In this case, you're getting to the point where it's going to cut like 30% of production and herd numbers by 30% to meet these emission requirements by the state. And it's probably going to have a massive economic impact, during a time where the entire world is falling deeper into what may be a very bad recession. But it's not like the unintended consequences fairy might be hovering about to bop somebody on the noggin, or the disinformation fairy might be censoring parts of this to the public because it's kind of uncomfortable news to be having. I don't know why that would be a problem. Why anybody would mistrust the government when it comes to the EPA and environmental policies. It's not like I have a whole bunch of those stories dialed up today. So in this case, it's Kudlow, who I fucking don't care about, breaks down Supreme Court EPA ruling signaling catastrophe, the Green New Deal. I had to read 3 articles, including this one where this quote unquote expert had to break down this deal because, the media is like, oh, you need details. Oh, you don't need those things. Why would you want those things? Just accept our message. So what he's basically talking about is the Supreme Court kicked this case because it ends up being a problem with Congress should create the law and the states should have their individual rights. This is Obama era policies and overreach. That rooster coming back to roost. So the case involving, I believe it's West Virginia. I didn't write that down. So Kagan, again, she's a moron. She's on the Supreme Court. I have this pointed out with her because I had to read this article. She writes in there that whatever else this court may know about, it does not have a clue about how to address climate change, because climate change has anything to do with your knowledge of the law, because that's what you're supposed to be ruling on. It's not your subjective opinion. And we'll go back to the right-leaning justices fucking that up too, in this case. So how about you just address the law in this case? Like, what is the law that you were trying to support, not just your subjective feelings about why we should be allowing the government to overreach on climate change? Because I would agree that this could be a big deal, but why should we allow tyrannical powers to go to the government in order to solve this? That's not an issue of law. That's an issue of your feelings. So bang up job, Kagan, on delivering an opinion that has any legal value, because your feelings get in the way. So I believe I had to go to this third article to get a better understanding of what was going on in this court case, because the other ones are like, fuck you don't need to know this. So so it says here, the Supreme Court's ruling in West Virginia versus EPA. The case declares it is unlawful for federal agencies to make major decisions without clear authorization from Congress. That is a pretty good understanding of what was going on. It took me only the third article to find it today. It says capping carbon dioxide emissions at a level that will force a nationwide transition away from the use of coal to generate electricity may be sensible solution to the crisis of the day, Chief Justice Robert wrote in his opinion for the court. But there's also the but. He added that the Clean Air Act does not give the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, authority to do so. Nation of laws, not your fucking feelings. Because your feelings can change, the law should not, unless you go out of your way to change it, obviously. So anyway, such a decision of such magnitude and consequence rests with Congress itself or an agency acting pursuant to a clear delegation from that representative body, he wrote. So this is essentially saying, hey, you can't put deep state operatives into the EPA and have them pursuing policies that are not delineated directly from Congress to go do. This is sort of what this is pointing out. And also, you shouldn't allow these national government agencies carte blanche to go in and tell states how to run themselves. That's also a violation of the 10th Amendment. So to go further in this article, there's a quote that was put out. Almost everything about these cases is manufactured in an effort to return an era free from oversight by the government. And I was like, yes, give me an erection. And this was put out by Sheldon Whitehouse, senator from Rhode Island, Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, moron Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, couch surfer himself, wrote in a brief to the court. You had me at Warren and Sanders, those idiot savant grifters. If they want this, it's probably bad. And it's probably good that it went to the side of the dodo. And to think that they're using a pejorative of saying, let's go back to an era free from government oversight, like that's a bad thing at this point. And we'll get to that when we get to our daily move the fuck out of California. So also in this AOC, this article, it shows that AOC is advocating again for, Ocasio Moron Cortez out of New York, the representative. She's advocating to get rid of the filibuster because it gets in the way of tyranny too much. So she wants to get rid of the filibuster in this case. Biden also wants to get rid of the filibuster to push through abortion. Because it's almost like the filibuster's there to get in the way of emotional, illogical arguments that are just knee jerk, because it's always best to use the nuclear option when you can't get your way. So Biden and filibuster to pass abortion protections. It's almost like we have a filibuster for a reason. So people can't willy-nilly just go like, we need to go burn this to the ground because reasons. Because it's always the right idea when it's your idea, but it's never the right idea when it's your opponent's, because you might have to actually listen to what their argument is. So anyway, let's see. We're going back to more Supreme Court stuff because this is the end of their session that's going out right now. Supreme Court rules Biden administration can end Trump era remain in Mexico policy. And from what I understand, like this was always going to go this way. It's the correct ruling. This is the enforcement branch of the executive, the enforcement portion of the executive branch. So once you get a new executive, the enforcement portion of the border can shift, and it shifts back to the executive branch, which means the policy of the previous administration can be set aside for the new administration. Fair enough. So why there would even be this, why this would even come to the Supreme Court, I don't know. It's not surprising that in the first place, I mean, our southern border might as well be Panama, but it doesn't change the fact that this is the separation of powers working as intended. Um, I have another article on this that I had to look up to kind of find what I was looking for. I thought this one was a little bit better, even though it's Washington Post and their Bezos trash. So in this one, Roberts said the federal immigration law gives the executive discretion. From what I understand, this is the correct ruling. Roberts is we'll call him a moderate that kind of sits on the fence and goes which way the wind blows. So he was in the majority of opinion on this, writing. Alito in the dissent, writing for himself. Thomas and Grolich said the Department of Homeland Security should not be free to simply release into the country untold numbers of aliens who are very likely to be removed if they show up to their removal hearings. The practice violates the clear terms of the law. He doesn't state what this article doesn't state what he meant by clear terms of the law, but the court looks the other way. It's a bullshit non-legal argument from what is written in the article. Got to call it both ways. Try and be neutral. If Kagan is going to whine emotionally, and then Alito just turns around and says, "Well, I don't like the wind blow," then it's bullshit. I did find it interesting in this article. It did talk about Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett, where she wrote that the case should not have gone to the Supreme Court. It should have been remanded to the lower courts. I agree with her on that one. So again, got to call it both ways. I don't like the ruling, but it doesn't mean it's not the correct ruling. Good law is good law, bad law is bad law. So other Supreme Court news today is the High Court rejects COVID-19 shot mandate from New York. And in this one, the main focus down here at the bottom, New York is one of 3 states, along with Maine and Rhode Island, that did not accommodate health care workers who object to the vaccine on religious ground. The court had previously turned away healthcare workers in Maine who had filed a similar challenge with the same 3 justices. This is a states' rights issue. At the end of the day, if you don't like the contract, renegotiate the contract. If the law in New York, Maine, and Rhode Island do not accommodate healthcare workers, change the law. It's a states' rights issue. You're probably not going to have much in regards to a First Amendment, argument in this case, but it depends on what the arguments were. But it does appear this is the correct ruling, from what I can gather. And I'm not going to read some stupid 100-page decision on court cases that probably suck and they're moronic. So who cares? So let's see, what do we have now? So the WHO chief, who's a communist, who gets kickbacks from China. Tedros Adhanom something. He's not a doctor. He's the head of the World Health Organization, who's a joke. He came out and said that the U.S. abortion ruling is a setback and will cost lives. And I know you and I may disagree on a bundle of cells in a human life argument, but I have a question. How could you rationally try and extend this argument that the U.S. abortion ruling will cause a setback and will cost lives? Uh, I'm pretty sure we've biologically evolved to such an extent that more than likely pregnancy is efficient enough to get the job done, that we have as many people on the planet that we do. So I would relatively think that a pregnancy and childbirth are safe. So what lives will it cost exactly? I mean, like onesies or twosies here or there, but then we're back to the bundle of cells and or an actual human being, and now you're splitting hairs there, aren't you, Mr. Tedros? So I think this is just a stupid argument by you who's in charge of the World Health Organization. Okay, I guess. So let's see. Next article for today. Betrayal. Biden cut deal with McConnell to appoint extremist anti-abortion judge. This is an interesting story, actually. So this is how politics is conducted, which is like McConnell was able to get Biden to cut a deal where a pro-abortion judge would be put in a federal judge position in Kentucky when that opens up next, even though there's no open position. And in return, he'll stop being an asshole and blocking all of Biden's appointees. It's not like any of Biden's appointees have been utter trash. So good old cocaine Mitch here. He thinks that this is an overall good deal. I get one for my state because he is from Kentucky, and then you get to pollute the rest of the country with whatever garbage that you want to put in there. And I get to think I'm the good guy, but at the end of the day, with the economy going to shit and World War III building up, this is on that list of matters. We deserve the government that we fucking get. So let's see. Florida, more abortion news. Florida's 15-week abortion ban blocked in court. I don't care. This is the country working as intended. If I can pull this up, it says Leon County Circuit Judge John Cooper said he will issue an injunction that blocks the abortion ban statewide, ruling the law violates the Florida Constitution's rights to privacy. I would have to read the Florida Constitution to be able to have an opinion on whether or not the abortion ban would violate Florida's right to privacy. And I ain't gonna read it because I don't care that much. And this is gonna likely go through Florida court system to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's gonna make a ruling. Either way, it becomes a state issue, not a federal overreach. Not a bad thing. It's almost like each state is supposed to have their own culture and their own internal political system to decide their own fate. It's almost like we were designed that way. I don't know where I get these fucking stupid ideas from, but I do sometimes. So working as intended, Florida gets to have their abortion ban or not. That's up to them. Let's see. So we're going to go on to Canada is not a real country. So Jagmeet Singh proposes $1,000 counterfeit Canadian dollars inflation relief payment for Canadians. And who is Jagmeet Singh? Why would I be pointing him out? Well, he's a vile, detestable moron that lives in the fake country of Canada. And I didn't even realize the stupidity that's on their fucking dollars. Is that really Canadian? They're not a real country. Doesn't matter if it's real Canadian money or not. It's not real. So He's a Canadian politician who has served as the leader of the New Democratic Party. This is their socialist party, further to the left of Trudeau's Liberal Party. So they're pretty far down the rabbit hole. Canada is dealing with inflation levels not seen in 4 decades, with Statistics Canada pegging the annual inflation rate at 7.7. Food prices rose 10.3% year over year in May, and shelter costs were up 7.4%, which is bearing the truth. Actual housing prices in Canada have doubled since Trudeau has taken office. More politicians who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. This proposal would objectively cause more inflation in Canada. What the fuck is he thinking? Let's just print more money to solve the problem of overprinting money. Fucking morons. Get the government you deserve. Excuse me a second. All right, had to clear my throat. So another of circling back like a redheaded stepchild to one of Biden's nominees, Mayor Pete has decided that he's going to push through a racial equity $1 billion pilot to build racial equity in roads. I fucking don't know what that means. It's saying that there's been racism with how we've built things in the country, and he's going to solve this with this $1 billion infrastructure plan. It does come from Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law that before we had this runaway inflation, everybody was saying, hey, this is going to cause runaway inflation. And it also says in the article it's considerably less than the 20 billion the Democratic president originally envisioned. Yeah, it's almost like they couldn't embezzle the 20 million. It just disappeared into the ether. They only get $1 billion to disappear in the ether. Advocacy groups say the money isn't nearly enough because there's more mouths at the trough that need to get their kickbacks. And again, like they're going to build. I think I have it written down. They're going to build. Obviously, let's see, where is it at? Caps built on tops of highways featuring green spaces, bike lanes, and pedestrian walkways, because you need those to allow for safe crossings over the roadways, pre-purposing for rail lines, and partial removal of violence. There's nothing equitable about this. This is, I'm pushing my fucking Green New Deal, and fuck you, fuck you minorities in areas that I don't give a shit about. I'm just going to embezzle this money because, yeah. And it's literally nonsense. You get the government you deserve. Awesome. Let's see how that helps when we get to talking about some of the other problems that are going on within the Black community. So this is your daily get the fuck out of California. California is cancer. So California lithium tax would delay shipments to automakers, executive warrants. And you got to go all the way to the bottom of this article to get the good gravy out of this stuff, because it's not about green. Well, I guess it is kind of about green, right? It's not about the environmental green. It's about like, let's see how much money we can print and embezzle into our coffers in Sacramento. So the idea of like, let's ship this business someplace else. Like, what the fuck good idea if Ferry came in and touched your forehead with their wand and said, let's tax this, because it's not like it's just going to send more business out of California. So this company, Controlled Thermal Resources, received 4.5 million in grants from California in 2020. Why the fuck do you think they're dumb enough to go to California? Is because they got given taxpayer dollars to show up for lithium research. So now the CEO, Rod Colwell, he's like, he's got the contracts to supply lithium to GM, or he's got the contracts to supply the batteries to GM by 2024, and Stellantis by 2025. Said the tax would force the company to miss those delivery deadlines. No fucking shit. Just the mere concept of this type of tax is having a chilling effect on development. No fucking shit. Let's return to an era of lack of government oversight. Let's good old Reagan said, if you want to promote something, subsidize it. If you want to stifle it, tax it. So what are California's actual intentions when it comes to the Green New Deal? Well, it's stifling innovation on the battery, because fuck you. It's not your club, and they get to hang out there in their Catalina wine mixers and have those mouth laughs, because who cares? So Governor, I'm not Pritz whatever signs Crown Act, and you're like, oh, what's the Crown Act? Well, you see, this fat fuck who's never found a second breakfast that he didn't like. It's the well, it doesn't really create a respectful, open workplace for natural hair. Fuck, who cares? It basically it allows for black people to wear whatever hair that they want to wear. You know, like respect and elevate black people regardless of how they want to wear their hair, because this is what's fucking important. So speaking of Chicago, the fat fuck governor of Illinois, there's this CBS article that came out yesterday. A coin flip: nearly half of U.S. murders go unsolved. Oh, you don't say. And this is down. It's down from when we were solving about 70% of murders. And it's really funny in this article, this fucking CBS article, these fucking idiots. Um, Speaking of Chicago, did you know that police don't report clearance data through the FBI's Uniform Reporting Program? So CBS News submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for Chicago Police Department data. In 2020, the data showed the department's murder clearance rate was about 44%, 16% less than the national average. However, CBS says the murder clearance rate in Chicago is actually 24% when you get done fucking around with the stuff that they do to it. So the governor of Illinois is more concerned with passing hair legislation than solving the 24% murder clearance rate in Chicago, because fuck you, right? So also in this article, like I was saying before I cut myself off, in dozens of interviews across the country that CBS conducted, police and criminal justice experts have offered a range of explanations for these trends in the lowering of the murder clearance rate. And I'm like, oh, please, experts, please elucidate me on what would be causing this problem. It couldn't have anything to do with, defund the police and this national ideological trend to vilify police officers and to cut competency by using woke hiring practices to bring people in, so you don't even have competent officers when you do fund them. It couldn't have anything to do with any of this stuff. Couldn't have anything to do with a national media that is pushing out propaganda when it comes to the relationship between communities and their law enforcement. Couldn't have anything to do with any of this shit, right? It must be some other problem that is causing crime to spike and an inability to catch the murderers in this country. I don't know experts in criminal justice that have offered a range of explanations for the trends. It can't just be that anybody that's sitting in their fucking lazy boy in their living room could sit there and go like, I think I could fucking solve this tomorrow. Fucking people. So in more dumbass governors, you get the government you deserve. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York lawmakers hold special session will limit where guns can be carried. Yeah, because they're pushing back on the Bruin decision, and they're basically going to make it illegal to carry guns into stores that don't put up that you're allowed to carry guns in the stores. Because again, this is important when you have historic crime going on, in the country, with a lack of ability to clear murders. And the interesting thing about good old Kathy Hochul is she decides, someone asked her to please provide the numbers in regards to how carrying concealed will raise the amount of violent crime that goes on. And Kathy Hochul's response was, I don't have to show you those numbers. Fuck off. They also was asked about how it would prevent mass shootings. And Kathy Hochul was like, well, this doesn't have anything to do with Buffalo, because it's virtue signaling. Guns equal bad. It can't be you and your public policies that are ruining everything. So let's move on to the brewing World War III that's going on. So good old Zero Hedge has put out that all those Russian sanctions when it comes to the oil, well, it's only dropped about 15% in their exports. You still see that China is surged to the top of the line. Germany's number 2. they're still buying it. Italy, Netherlands, Turkey, Poland, France, Bulgaria, Belgium, Greece, Spain, Austria, Romania, the UK, Slovakia, Estonia. They're all in Europe. Um, uh, they're still buying all this stuff. What it's done is it's made China the number one importer of Russian fossil fuels. Um, and in the good news department, the only country that's sticking to their word is the U.S. And so it's not an entirely complete lie that gas prices are higher in the U.S. because of Russian sanctions. It's Putin's fault still, that we have an administration that put the sanctions on Putin, but it's not entirely, we just cut them off. But yeah, so as I wrote in my thing, fuck you, Europe. It's like you're just some porn star that's reveling in all the corruption that you're involved with, and you're taking all those money shots to the face because you're just like, oh, I love corruption. I don't really care about what I do. I only care about what I say. Let's just drive Russia to the arms of China, because the good idea meets the unintended consequence fairy head on in some fucking train wreck. Who could have seen this coming? When you're so energy dependent on Russia, and then you decide to virtue signal, and to continue on with this train wreck of foreign policy. We have multiple stories on this. Russia and China slam NATO for expanding because Russia is running into the arms of the adversary of China. And one of the things that's written in this article is money remains an issue with NATO. Just 9 of NATO's 30 members currently meet the organization's target of spending 2% of gross domestic product on defense. Because it's not really about any of this. It's about maintaining power and corruption. And I wrote down, and who would think that Russia and China don't like you expanding and gearing up? Like, who would think that they might find that your response is to gear up militaristically to deal with them, and they would go like, oh, I don't have a problem with you guys gearing up, even though you're corrupt jokes that are incompetent. It's almost like looking in your neighbor's yard and seeing him building a massive missile system with your picture on it, and going, oh, there's nothing to see here. I mean, why you don't have the ability to negotiate with Russia and China in some type of good faith manner, that you could de-escalate this by going, oh, I understand why Russia and China might have some of these problems with this, because no, you just want the corruption and the power. It's not about actually solving the issue. So showing how corrupt the European Union is. So the European Commission, now they're sitting there talking. The European Commission said it said it cannot and does not need to find text messages that President Ursula von der Leyen exchanged with the boss of Pfizer at the height of the pandemic. They also wrote in here the life-saving coronavirus vaccines. I'm going to need to see a citation for that comment. More recently, she said, Ursula von Letter, she recently said the commission risks undermining the integrity of EU administration without tougher restrictions on senior staff moving to the private sector. I probably pulled that from the wrong quote. Now that I think about it, someone else must have said that, because it couldn't be the corrupt person that's holding themselves to a particular standard. Must be maybe Kathleen von Bremt, a social democrat. She must have been the one that said that. Anyway, doesn't matter. Europe is corrupt as shit, because fuck you, serf. This is our kingdom, and you're not in the club. And finally, to end the day, not one of my better shows, I would say. We have good old Jordan Peterson being yeeted off of Twitter because he said, and I probably won't say it because I would probably get yeeted off of YouTube. Something about remember when pride was a sin, and some current actor who used to be an actress had her boobies removed by a criminal physician. And again, my point behind all this, going back to Ketanji Brown Jackson, who can't legally define woman and has no basis of law, and a National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy calling for censorship and control of narratives, is I hate the word democracy. Democracy is tyranny of the masses, but it's bullshit. It's important that democracy has the ability to call bullshit. And if democracy does not have the ability to call bullshit on things, it's not a functioning democracy. It is tyranny. And for someone like Jordan Peterson to get suspended from basically entering the domain to have the conversation is bullshit, which means you don't have a functioning democracy, even though we don't have a democracy in the US. Because fuck you, it's our kingdom, and you're just a serf.